Hi guys, welcome back to the Earthy Delights podcast. Here, I'm very lucky to have Tom from Guiris de Mierda in Madrid. Unfortunately, we're doing it via Riverside, but hopefully after this we can at some point share a canyon together. But Tom, very welcome to the Earthy Delights podcast. How you doing?
Yeah, very well, thank you. Thank you for having me. Yeah, I think we've got a bit of a Kenya overdue actually. So one of
Yes, very much so, very much. It's been. I think I told you when I first reached out, but and this might make me sound like a slight stalker, so I am wary of that. But for full transparency, I came across your profiles must be now a couple of years ago. Just like I think just one of your videos might have just popped up on like my feed on Instagram at one point. At the point you were still a UX web designer, if I'm not mistaken, and I think you were like just dabbling about with like the idea of like launching like a t-shirt range at the time. And I was like, oh, this guy's interesting. I was like, I'll follow him along. And then from those humble beginnings, it's very much blown up from your end. And you've now kind of launched this like almost like community empire, taking over Spain with Guiris de Mierda, which obviously I'll ask you more about in detail. But I've always been like, oh, this guy is a guy that I wanna talk to, I want to get to know a bit more. And truth be told, I've always like, I don't know how to properly initiate or start that conversation. So I was like, I'm just gonna wait and see. And then you kind of on Instagram put up a message to see if anyone could help up with Facebook ads and stuff, which is happily is what I do for work. So we had a good chat there, and I was like, that's great. And then I was like, I want to get him on the podcast, but again, me being me, I was like, I don't know how to ask him. I don't want to be too forthright, whatever. And then literally a week later, you're like, hey, if anyone wants me on any podcasts, just send me a message. I was like, right, I think I'm not really one for the world or the universe is sending me messages, but I was like, I do kind of feel like something's telling me to just fucking send the message. So we sent it, and here you are. So very happy for that.
no, also I'm glad that I'm glad that you reached out in the end. But for me, I'm super open with this sort of stuff anyway. So you could have asked me like
Yeah,
like back then or whenever you initially had the thought. I'm always happy to do this kind of stuff and to talk about what I'm building, but also just pretty open in general. My business is all about community and connection and stuff, right? So I like to think that I'm pretty open with that sort of stuff and to new people and all that sort of thing.
good stuff. Well, I tell you what, even though I've just given the slight spiel of what it is that what you do or how you started off, but do you want to give me or give the listeners as well kind of a bit of the backstory? Yeah, from
Yeah.
your beginnings in Birmingham all the way to kind of I guess moving out to Madrid and starting what you started.
Yeah, so where to start? I guess yeah. Start in Birmingham. My name's Tom, of course. I've been living in Spain. I like to say I've been lost in Spain for about 10 years now. But originally from Birmingham, but I haven't lived there. I've lived most of my adult life in Spain, to be honest. After Birmingham, I went to university in England as well, but not in Birmingham. I went to university in a city called Leeds, and then from
Same.
there, did you really go to Leeds?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
No.
Leeds all the way. There you go. Something else we have in common. Beautiful.
That's hilarious. Yeah, and I love Leeds. What a great city Leeds is as well.
What a great place. Bakery 164 every morning. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
How fun is that? Yeah, yeah. So I was in Lupton Halls, if you know it. I don't know if you know
Yeah,
it.
yeah, of course. Yeah.
That's amazing. That's so funny. And and then so yeah, after Leeds, I left and never went back. Unfortunately, I always say though, if I had to move back to the UK, which
Mm.
if I had to, I would probably go up north and I'd go to Leeds or like Headingley, that kind of area
Yeah,
because
yeah, yeah.
north of England is absolutely beautiful. It's just a shame about the weather. That's the only thing.
Yeah. Mm.
left left England pretty much for good. Went traveling a little bit, did the classic UK person thing of going all over the place, going to Australia, going to Southeast Asia, and then ended up falling in love with a Spanish girl. The story's a little bit convoluted in terms of I actually met her before when I've met her in Leeds. So
Mm.
the story kind of goes a bit back and forth. We were kind of falling in love, but also thinking, what are we going to do?
Yeah.
Are we going to try and make this thing work, or what do we do? I don't really know. And then in the end, she's like, "Hey, if you want to just come and experience the Spanish life, then come on over." And I came and never turned back. Basically, I've kind of been here, pretty much been here ever since. There's been like a couple of little gaps here and there where I've had little breaks away from Spain, but I've been here ever since. So I've lived most of my adult life in Spain. And yeah,
Mm.
just to kind of expand on what you were talking about before as well. I've done well, not pretty much every job, but I've done a lot of different jobs here in Spain. I've done things from like teaching, which is also a classic kind of rite of passage when many English speakers come to Spain for the first time.
Yeah.
Singing Baby Shark in in the classrooms to toddlers, which was, to be honest, quite soul destroying at the time. I just thought, wow, I came from Australia and I was like traveling the world, and now I'm like in a classroom teaching babies. And like, well, no knock on that, by the way, but it just wasn't for me. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah,
Absolutely not for me whatsoever. It's just like I don't mind kids one on one. I want kids one day myself, but I don't want to be in a classroom 30
yeah,
kids versus me. If that's how I
yeah. It's
felt.
a different animal. Yeah.
Oh yeah, awful. And so I've kind of potted around Spain for the last 10 years doing different things, and then in the end I decided to start making content.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was a UX designer at the time, as you quite rightly said. So I was making content about what I was doing for work and UX, and I was reviewing web pages. And this was around the time when I'd say like TikTok was a bit more in its infancy. I mean, not completely, but it was a bit more of it in its infancy. So I feel like it was easier to grow back then on TikTok. So I started growing quite a good following, and then on TikTok. And then once the shame had left me for like posting content, I decided, look, I'm going to just start doing it on Instagram because that's the platform that I'm like more familiar with. And I started
Mm-hmm.
posting on Instagram, and then by that time, my content was kind of changing from UX to remote work, and then it kind of changed from remote work to living in Spain. And then it's pretty much been like Spain centric and just kind of, I guess, my life centric ever since. And now I like to kind of summarize what I do is there's two parts of me, I guess. One is, and I guess now actually there's three parts. When I say of me, I mean kind of like me, my soul, and my business, everything that kind of makes me up. Is on the one side we have Guiris de Mierda, which is obviously the community that you spoke about before, where we do events every single week, from speed dating to trips. We've done the Camino de Santiago, we do ski trips, we do rooftop parties, we do networking stuff. We do a little bit of everything because for me, I like the variety. I'm someone that gets, if I do the same thing over and over and over, I get bored, which is just, I've just been that way my whole life. So that's why kind of Giddy's kind of encapsulates or kind of just does a little bit of everything. We're not specialists, we're definitely generalists at Guiris de Mierda. That's one thing. So it's the community events, bringing people together, human connection, locals, foreigners mixing in the same place. That's kind of us. And then the other thing is I've got this kind of more traditional influencer side of things where I post personal content, whether that be vlogs or opinion pieces, I guess you could say. And then in that, the main part of that for me, what I get out of that is I do a lot of adventure style content, whether that's skateboarding through Spain or whether it's going to check out little abandoned villages in Spain. Or last year I rented an RV for a few weeks and just drove all around Andalusia and just spoke to the locals and just, to be honest, just partied and like swam in lakes and just lived the proper off the grid style of life, which was amazing. And then and so that's kind of the stuff that I'm really, that's probably the stuff that feeds my soul the most, even
Right.
though it is in mierda. That is definitely more the business side of things. And then what feeds my soul is like the adventure and the exploration style stuff that I do out of the passion, just because there's no
Yeah.
reason for me to do it. It just makes me feel good when I do it.
Yeah.
Luckily, because I've done that quite a few times now, I've got some sponsors for the next big thing I've got coming up, which I haven't announced yet, but I can tease it a little bit maybe later.
Happy days.
And yeah, so then I've kind of found a way to kind of make that in a way also my job, which is, to be honest, like the biggest blessing ever. This is why I always say I love social media. But anyway, I'm kind of waffling a little bit. And then my new venture, the new side of what I do now as well, is I've just launched a boot camp called Community Builders, which is kind of a community within a community, also with an online course with lots of resources. And it's just cataloging all my experience of building Guiris de Mierda for people that might want to do the same thing, because I like to say that the community model, like the community business model, is kind of the business model, the best business model for your soul, because it's not always like the best in terms of revenue, although you can live a decent life on it. But it's great for your soul, because you meet amazing people, you really implant yourself in the community where you are. You become like a local person that people trust, and there's a lot of value that comes from that isn't necessarily monetary. So that's what I like to say, the best business model for your soul. And that's me.
Beautiful. That's beautiful. That's a lovely way to sum up. So you came out to Madrid, and is actually literally just before we came onto this podcast to record. I was just like scrolling through Instagram while I was waiting, And I actually just saw one of your latest, well, the last Guiris post on Instagram, which was like a carousel, and the first image was 61% of, I think it was based in Barcelona, but 61% of expats. Well, I always find it funny, expats or immigrants, but anyway, whichever. That's another discussion for another day. But expats stick within kind of like their circle, and like basically like live with other, or have social circles that are basically frequented by other expats, and kind of don't really ever get out of that bubble and like and socialize with, well, in this case, Spaniards. So I wonder. Obviously, you came out here with your girlfriend, so I imagine that to some extent would have helped because she would have had her own network out here to some extent. But I also am aware, we were both in Leeds, but I don't know what you studied, but I studied Spanish and business. So for me, it was kind of a logical step to come out here in Spain, and the language, even though I learned way more my first year here in Spain than I ever did in uni, it wasn't that much of a barrier. But I imagine for you, it must have been that those first couple of years when you were singing Baby Shark to children, that must have been quite hard. So how was that for you to to emigrate from the UK, and then to come to a country where you don't dominate the language, where you don't like you're not fluent in it, but yet try and create some sort of like connection and social circle out here?
So it was, to be honest, I've always been quite a social person, but even so, it was definitely quite difficult. I remember thinking a few times in that first year, like, what am I doing? Like, I'm not really sure if this is for me. I kind of thought that I had potential to do something, and I felt like I just wasn't doing anything. I felt like I was living quite passively, even though I'd made this decision to come to
Yeah,
Spain. It's like
yeah,
some people, it's their dream to come to Spain now. You know, like some people think, "Oh, I'd love to go to Spain. I want to experience the Spanish life." That wasn't what happened for me. I kind of came to Spain without knowing much about Spain, apart from the ignorant stuff, the ignorant tourist stuff of like,
yeah,
oh, like sun, sea, siesta, sangria, all that sort of stuff. And so I wasn't particularly impressed by Spain, and I had no desire before to move to Spain. I didn't know what Spain had to offer.
yeah.
Um, and so once I was over here, I was like, oh, I've moved over here for a girl. I've got no friends. I don't speak the language, and all of her friends were great, and some of them spoke English, some of them didn't, but they weren't my people. You know what I mean? So like,
Yeah,
I can't just hang. I'm not the type of person that can just kind of inject myself into my girlfriend's friend group and then I'm just happy. I need to carve my own way, and I had to find my own people as well. And so that
yeah,
didn't really come for a whole year. And I was putting myself out there. I was going to like salsa classes and I was doing stuff, to be fair, but I just didn't click. Nothing was clicking really. So it was around that year mark where I was thinking about leaving Spain because I'd done the one cycle of a school year, and it was kind of moving up to the next cycle, and I was psyching myself up thinking, I cannot go back to the Baby Shark days again, because I'd been working in summer camps in this time as well a little bit, and the summer camps were fine. So I was outside, I was in nature, I was still with kids, but I felt like I was doing something that kind of resonated with me a little bit better. At least we were doing like nature activities, like on boats and canoeing, stuff outside, hikes. So I liked it, you know. And
mm,
then when the school year rolls around, obviously that's September, so it starts getting colder again. It would have been the classroom for me. And one of my friends told me, "Hey, you should go." And my friend works in a company. Their vibe, the stories that I hear from my friend, um, their vibe seems like your vibe. It's all young people. They like to go for beers on every single Friday, and so you should definitely apply. They've got jobs in customer experience open right now. So I thought, screw it. What have I got to lose? I've never worked in customer experience before, but it was an entry level role that came up, and so I applied for that. Got the job. Ended up getting interviewed by an English guy who later became like my best friend, and then we ended up, yeah, exactly. And then that's when things really started to click for me, because I wasn't like, I love Spanish people, but I wasn't in a solely Spanish environment. I was in an international environment where there were people from the US, there were people from Lithuania. I've met my first Lithuanian friend there, who actually also she's the person that got me into content. She also makes content in Spain with Gabby. Just a little shout out to
nice.
Gabby,
Okay.
because she's quite big on socials as well, and we actually met through
Great.
work, which is funny. Um, and then ended up met like some Venezuelan friends in this company. So it was super international, you know, people from all
Yeah,
over the place.
yeah,
And yeah, and that's when I really started to click. And I think that work, like my work, was actually the reason how I found friends. Um, So yeah, there was nothing like Giddies that existed back then, and if there was, it was something like Intonations, which I've never heard of, and it was an older crowd, and probably wouldn't be
Mhm.
something that I would get into. And to be completely honest, I've never been the type of person that would even go to go to my own type of events, which is so weird
Yeah,
to see because I love them
yeah.
now, but I've never done that sort of stuff in the past. I ended up creating it a little bit out of like necessity, I think.
It's a really interesting point that you say that, because I'm similar. And like I said, I haven't quite got myself to a Giddies event yet, but I made sure that I will do so this year, and hopefully more than one. But that idea of not going to, like, you're not the person to go to these types of events. I was very much similar. So I went last month to Deep Chats from Tatiana, who I know that you know well as well,
Yeah,
and that was my like first event. And I've like been out here in Madrid 8 years. I've got like a full Spanish circle. Don't have to be honest, Tom. I've actually like steered away from anyone who's like English or American or any of that type of which poses something about me and the insecurities that I have about being linked to being British out here in Spain, which I'm sure you can understand the connotations that come with that.
yeah,
But I was one of those people as well. I was like, man, like I'm turning 30, like who goes to these types of events? Like, what's it for? I don't know. But at the same time, I was like, there was a certain nervousness within me that I was like, I know this is the right thing. I know I should be going. And I've been feeling that for the last 2 years, but I always came up with a crappy excuse from reality, but some excuse in my head that meant that I didn't come to an event this month or next month or the month
yeah,
after. And then came February, I was like, listen, just go. And I was pacing in my house before I left. And I was like, oh, for fuck's sake, do I have to really go? Blah, blah, blah. As if someone was forcing me. And I was like, just go and get there. And then it's that first 5 minutes of like being uncomfortable. You're kind of on the edge of a group that maybe there's already 3 or 4 people talking, and you're just stood there, how do I get myself into this conversation? But once that passes, I feel like we're kind of like kindred spirits in the sense that I feel like we're quite open, quite easy to talk to, and happy to talk ourselves and all the rest of it. Once that passes, then you have a ball of a time. But it's just kind of getting over that like initial hump and those like whatever it is, those like weird, like, yeah, things that we come in our head with. I'm not the type of person that goes to these events. I don't know what that even means. Once I went there, I was like, I don't know what that even means, because I was like, I'm going to go and there's going to be just a load of Americans. There's going to be no one else. It's only going to be single people, because why would anyone in a couple go to an event like this? I can't imagine why that would happen. And then I got there, and then I'm talking to like Spanish people. I'm talking to a guy with his wife there. And you're like, oh, all of these like preconceived ideas that I had about what this event was going to be, or at least who the people were going to be at this event. You're like, they were all completely wrong, and you're like, oh, what a div I was for this last like year and a half putting something off before these preconceived notions. That then you realize they have no basis, they have no foundation whatsoever.
yeah. That's the thing, and that's what we try and do with our events. We try and not let that first part happen, where because it's just all, what events are about at their essence.
Mm.
As in, people want to go to make connections with other people, and I think a lot of people have that same trepidation that you have before. It's like, oh, because everyone knows that feeling, right? You go somewhere and you like, even if those people don't know each other and they're in a little group, you feel like they're like best friends for life, and they're not
Yeah,
going to
yeah, yeah, literally.
we try and take away that feeling. Like when you come into our events, we usually have some sort of icebreaker that's going on within the first hour. For our big events, we have like multiple icebreakers. So you'll come in and you'll have something to do literally straight away. So we give you permission to speak to other people from the off, and
Yeah,
even if it's something stupid, it's like, it doesn't matter, because the whole purpose of it is to just kind of give you permission or give you an excuse to say something to somebody,
yeah, yeah.
kind of that's all excuse me, that's all people need a lot of the time,
Mm.
exactly like you just said as well. As soon as you get chatting, you're totally fine.
Yeah,
And it's just that kind of fear, but I think that fear holds so many people back from actually
yeah,
doing something like this. But
yeah,
yeah, it's opened my eyes. Running events like this and running the community has definitely opened my eyes to, you can do really cool stuff, like for me with the events, we've ended up just kind of following my curiosities. When we did we have a speed dating event, which is one of our longest standing reoccurring event types, and we've barely changed it for a year now, or almost 2 years now. We've optimized it a bit and turned it like, it used to be very manual, the matching system, and now it's all automated and stuff like that. But we did that for the first time because I did a speed dating event in Leeds actually once.
okay.
It's Raise and Give, so RAG. And I always thought, oh, what a cool idea that was, and then never did anything like it again. I always thought, oh, it'd be interesting to do something like that now. I've got a bit more of a profile, and I've started kind of doing some events. Like, let's do
Yeah,
speed dating, and it just became super popular. Like the video went viral. Every video we do about speed dating, to be honest, gets a lot of attention. And
Yeah.
I'm not really sure why, but like people just like to speak about, like to hear about dating. Or I think it's just a bit of a viral topic in general.
I think as well what you guys offer. I haven't been to one of the speed dating events. What you guys offer is something that I think, especially like in the dating world, and obviously like you can have a whole podcast series on this, to be honest. But like the dating world is that like it's because so I had like a long term girlfriend from when I was 17 to when I was 27. These last 2 years that I've been single. In that those 10 years, like obviously I had friends who were single, friends who went through breakups, whatever. I remember like thinking, oh, thank God I've got my girlfriend. Fucking going through this, which sounds like the worst thing ever, like just the apps and all of that type of stuff, the horror stories that you hear. It just seems awful. But then, and then, lo and behold, I find myself in a situation where you're like, all right, I'm downloading Tinder for the first time ever. You're like, for fuck's sake, never thought I was going to be here. But then it's like, the reality is that I think we've got ourselves into a place whereby there's so much possible connection through technology, like and through the apps or through social media and all the rest of it. But on the flip side of that, I think there's like a disconnect, and there's like that real life, that real like person to person connection doesn't really exist as much as it might have done 15, 20 years ago. And the idea of kind of maybe approaching someone out of the blue that you might see in a bar or in a bakery or whatever, not in a creepy way, but just being like, hey, that kind of also feels almost off the table. And so I feel like the events, like a speed dating event or whatever that you guys offer, it offers that like kind of safe space of like, hey, I want to get out of the algorithm, as it were, and find real connection or just have a fun time with someone in real life, and not like three crappy messages
Yeah,
draw blood out of stone.
yeah,
But where do I do that? Do you know what I mean? And so when you're 30 or around that age, where do you do that? Where do you find those places anymore? And so I think the events that you do, they offer that space. And I think that's why then when you like put the videos out on TikTok and all the rest of it, it creates so much interest because people, whether they want to go or whether they've got the fear of going or not, deep down they're probably like, that's something I should try at least once. I'm not saying you're going to find your love of your life necessarily.
Mm.
I know you've had some success factors, but like just that idea of real connection as opposed to all of the connection being behind the screen.
yeah. I mean, yeah, you hit the nail on the head. I think, especially when you said this could be a mini series by itself. For 100%, dating right now is completely fucked.
Mhm.
I've seen that from doing our speed dating events. Don't know. Some people come with super high expectations. It's the worst way to approach a speed dating event for sure, or maybe just the worst way to approach dating in general. For me, from what I've learned from hosting these events, is you should go into any dating scenario with just the only intention of just having a good time. Just like speak to the person, have a good time. Don't expect like for me the expectations ruin everything. People come and they'll have a bad. They're stopping themselves sometimes from having a good time because they're like, oh well, I didn't like anyone from the second that I came in, or like, oh, I hope that we would speak to more people or whatever. It's like just enjoy the moments that you have. Just
Yeah,
go into it. Just pour yourself into it 100%. Don't even necessarily come at it from a dating angle. Just come at it from like, who's the person in front of me? Speak to them, get along with them, because that for me that's the best way. And the people that approach it like that, they get
yeah,
so much more out of it because a
yeah,
lot of them, yeah. I mean, our hit rate in terms of matches, about 31% of people get at least one match. But it's not about that. It's our events really are about the connection side of things. So the way it works, just to give you some context, is the guys move and the girls stay in place. So like in
hmm,
between when we're changing over, you see the girls like talking to each other, and the girls like make friends, and they even if you don't get that romantic connection, one of the things we say in the initial speech is like just be open minded for just any type of connection because that's what we're all about at Giddies.
yeah,
This is a dating event, but it lives inside the Giddies ecosystem, so it often serves as like a top of funnel event. People come into speed dating because they hear about it, and they might then start going to other types of events. And yeah, and so yeah, it's a difficult it's a difficult what do you say like, battleground out there. I'm
yeah,
single as well. I've been single for a couple of years now. I want to say like a year and a half at least.
yeah,
Um, and yeah, I don't really know what the answer to dating is. It's probably not our speed dating, but it is nice to, as you say, to have. It's all about giving people permission, giving people an excuse. They meet from 12 to 25 people of the opposite sex that they're interested in. Maybe there's no romantic connection, maybe there is, but it's just they have a couple of drinks, you know what I mean? It's a nice place in Barrio Salamanca, so it feels quite nice. It feels kind of sexy, and it's a nice
Yeah,
experience.
I think as well, like what you said is, I mean, but I don't know the stats, but I would suggest 31% is probably a better hit rate than most of the apps, to be honest. But even if like the speed dating, because obviously you have so many different types of events, and even if the speed dating isn't necessarily the silver bullet, as it were, I do think the Giddies on the whole is like a bit of a silver bullet in the sense that I just think it gets you, and it's what I learned when I went to the deep chats, and now what I look forward to, kind of learning more, and when I go to a couple of your events. But like, it's the idea of getting out of your own circle. Like, because my head was very much like, are you 30? Like, everyone's got their own mates by now. Like, we're not 5 years old. It's not like, oh, hey, can I come and play? And you make some new friends. You know what I mean? It's like, we've all got our own friends. Like, and obviously, the friends as you get older, they become more and more close because they get married, they have kids, and whatever. So the idea of making new friends, no matter how social you are, becomes less and less of a reality because everyone is in kind of their own little groups. Whereas what your events allow people to do, whether it's romantic or otherwise, is they just allow you to meet new people. And
Exactly.
then you might meet your wife or not, but you might meet them from the cousin, from the friend of the guy who you met at a Guiris event. But the through line is the Guiris event. Do you know what I mean? And even if it's not a Guiris event, but if the Guiris event has allowed you to break the ice within yourself and give you that confidence to actually, hey, like we are all real people. For as much as we use mobile phones and all the rest of it, we are actually still real people at the essence. And actually giving people the confidence to approach people and create like real human connection as opposed to just all this social media stuff, which has its uses, of course. But I think we've kind of, as we always do, like the pendulum swings one way and then it swings the other to like the extremes. I think we're currently still in the extreme of like technology based in terms of trying to create connections, which is great. It's how I found you. It's how we're having this conversation now. But to be honest, Tom, like I'm more looking forward to when we have a Kanya, like at
Yeah,
some point. Not because of the beer side of thing, because that's when I'm going to really get to know you and I'll really get a vibe of you and do you know what I mean?
yeah.
And I think that's what your events offer people, which is like an amazing thing. I don't think you should take it lightly. I want to bring it right back because obviously you've got like an entrepreneurial mind. And like you said, you started off kind of doing like videos about UX and like web design and that type of stuff. Then obviously you realize you created like a little community, as it were. From that, you kind of ventured out, started did the t-shirt line, all the rest of it. But from there to creating like the community stuff, there's a big leap. Do you know what I mean? What was it that you saw in the community that you created on TikTok or Instagram? What were the comments you were getting, or what was it that kind of gave you the impetus to go, hey, I think like I can really create like this community thing as opposed to just making videos, making a t-shirt line, making this type of line, actually getting out there and meeting the people.
To be honest, it came from like multi angles. It kind of it I don't believe in things that are like meant to be as such. I just kind of, I guess, follow my intuition and follow like my curiosities a lot of the time with this sort of thing. I always make it. It came out of necessity, but it came out of. I just explained to you all the multifaceted kind of like
Yeah,
inputs.
go for it.
So I was making content and I wanted to stop being a UX designer because I fucking hated it. No, I didn't hate it. I didn't mind it, but like I'd done this big boot camp. I paid like €4,000 to do this UX boot camp, and then I did it over 9 months during COVID, and then I finally got my first UX role, and I was like, oh, is this it? You know, like, I liked it, and I was in a better place than before, and I was getting paid more than I was before as well, which was nice. And I was also working remotely, which was also nice, and I also could live in Spain, which was amazing. Still, I just wasn't. I expected I was doing something creative, and I really thought that was going to be the antidote to kind of the dissatisfaction that I was feeling before, and it wasn't. So still, I was spending loads of time in front of my computer. Still, if I wanted to leave in the middle of the day and get a coffee, or if it's a nice day like today, and I wanted to go for a walk, I was worried that my boss would like slack me or whatever. And I just kind of thought like I've had so many moments in my life where I think, God, it's just so short the time that we have without going like too philosophical and deep, but it is so short. And I would much rather just spend my life, even if it meant living a life as like completely broke and just trying to figure it out and stuff. I just would
Mm.
rather live my life on my own terms, and I'd just rather take some risks and just do some stuff and just not think about what people would say about me behind my back. And so I started. This is why I started making content originally, and so then once I started making the content, and I specialized, and I was making it especially around stuff in Spain.
Mm-hmm.
I started bumping into people in the streets. They're like, "Oh, you're the guy from TikTok," and I'd have nice little chat.
Really?
Yeah, I'd have a little nice
Yeah.
chat with them. But it was always like in a silo. I'd have this chat with this person, and a few days or weeks later, I'd have a nice chat with another person. Always
Yeah.
got great vibes from people. And I was like,
Yeah.
I wonder if there's a way I could bring these people together. At the
Mm.
same time, I was also exploring like different ways to make money from the content, how to monetize my audience. Yeah, as you said, we made the t-shirt brand, lost loads of money on that, worst business ever. The t-shirt brand was called Guiris de Mierda, and so as a technique to, I kind of thought, okay, I need to make people care about these t-shirts somehow. How do we make people care? I'm gonna start doing events and bringing people together, and we're just gonna sell the t-shirts at the events. And so the t-shirts ended up getting delayed and took like 6, 7, 8 months to even get made, and we spent loads of money on them, and it was a nightmare. But by this time, it kind of let the community grow. It wasn't even called Guiris de Mierda at the time. It was just a nameless. It was just nameless, just like bringing people together. But people,
Yeah.
because they saw me promoting the t-shirts, they were like, "Oh, like when's the next Guiris de Mierda event?" And I was like, "Okay." So sometimes when they give you a name, like you just
Yeah,
use.
take it.
Yeah, yeah. And so I thought, okay. And I've always loved the name. I've always thought it'd be like, obviously, I called the t-shirt brand Guiris de Mierda because I think it's a powerful brand name. I think it's one of those things that it does so much for like self-selecting the community. It kind of reflects my own personality and British people in general. Like it's a little bit self-deprecating. It's just a little bit cheeky.
Sure. I think it was a not to like blow smoke up your ass, but I think it was a slight stroke of genius, to be honest, because like I said, for people who are listening to this who maybe aren't from Spain or don't speak Spanish or whatever, so Guiris is basically what the Spaniards call, well, specifically British people, but anyone, foreigners who kind of live over here in Spain who especially don't really get in the culture and kind of like create their own little community, which obviously the English in Spain are notorious for, Benidorm and that type of stuff. And I'll be honest, like, obviously I came over here, speak Spanish well, all my mates are Spanish, so like I've done and partly I've done the complete opposite for that very reasons. Like I don't want to be considered as like the Benidorm types. And whenever like one of my mates would want to annoy me on purpose, they'd call me a giddy because they knew it under my skin because they know that I do everything not to be one. So to call me one is like, oh, you little bastard. So then when you like with your like logo, I was like, that's really smart because it's basically just taking ownership of it, which is probably something I should have done earlier anyway. But it's just like for as good as Spanish you speak, however Spanish you look, whatever food you eat, however many Spanish friends you have, ultimately you'll never be Spanish. That's just the reality of life. So at some point you've got to go, well, listen, it is what it is. If they call me a giddy, they call me a giddy. It's
Yeah,
not always mad. It's not always like there's not always bad intentions behind it. Like sometimes like Spanish people do saying it with a slight bit of love in their hearts, but like generally it's not a great it's not a great thing to be called. So but when you used it in that sense, I was like, that's really smart. And like you say, it then the people who are like the immigrants or expats out here, they can like kind of cling to that because they're already getting called it anyway, regardless. So fuck it, you might as well take ownership of it.
yeah. And I kind of like I was like, what's it called? Like audience testing it before I even ever wanted to call it, like before I ever attached the brand to it, because when I was out in Malasaña, for example, like chatting to Spanish native Spanish speakers, usually Spanish people, because in like Latin America they don't say giri, really, they say gringo.
Of course.
And so, but when I was chatting Spanish people in Malasaña, I'd always kind of joke around, be like, "Sí, soy giri," and they'll be like,
Yeah.
"No soy giri de mierda," and they'll be like,
Yeah.
they find it funny. I'm
Yeah.
like, okay. It gets a visceral response out of people as well, so I kind of
Yeah.
liked it.
Yeah, no, it was really smart, man. It was a really smart move on your behalf. So you created the connection, and then like as I was saying before the podcast, I'm really interested on how that translates for you. So obviously, the people who come along, the guests to the myriad of events that you have, they're all obviously very different. Some are more business orientated, some are more just have a party, some are like we said, the dating side, whatever. They're all very different. But I do feel like without having gone, but I do feel like it's the guest will get what it says on the tin or what it says on the ticket, as it were. Which is good, obviously. But I'm interested in what you get out of it as the host because number one, I guess it's probably evolved slightly because I would assume that at the start it's just exciting. It's just probably the nerves of is anyone even going to turn up? Then once you get over that, you're like, okay. But then there comes a point where, especially you now who you've branched out, you go to Barcelona, you Malaga, Valencia, you can't go to all of these events in person.
Mhm.
So obviously, you've also got to do all the boring admin side of it behind the scenes that none of us have to deal with. That we just turn up and have a good time. You've got to deal with all of that stuff, and then when you're there, I'm sure from the videos I see, it does look like you're a great host and that you're having a great time. But there's a professional side of things. You can't just go in there and just have a piss up and have a great time. And you've got to kind of control things and make sure that the night is headed the way that it's supposed to be. So I'm interested in how that looks from your end and what it is that you get out.
It's a good question, really. Like as you say, you hit the nail on the head. At the start, it was kind of just that doing something new felt novel, and so I was very, I don't know, just kind of, it's in my personality to like new stuff. I've always liked chaos, and so when you're trying something new like that, and even no matter what it is, if you're bringing a bunch of people in a room together, you never know what's going to happen. And I think that what I used to get out of it has definitely changed to what I get out of it now. Now I kind of view Guiris as like it's a business and I'm trying to grow it. You know what I mean? And that's so now I get the biggest thing that I get out of it, apart from the connections, because still I do benefit from that as well. You know, like people come to our events, and the best thing about it is they don't come for me, they don't come for whatever, they come for the connections that they leave with. They come for the other people. You see that when 2 hours in, the icebreakers are done and people are having a great time. They're really locked into conversations. That's why people come to it. And for me as well, that's the main thing that I've got out of it. I've met like some really great friends, some of my best friends through Guiris.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for sure. Some of my best friends I've met through Guiris. So it's like I am benefiting the same way as
Mm-hmm.
other people. However, kind of as times went on, of course, it's changed as well. It's like anything. So now I love the challenge of kind of trying to grow it, seeing what works, seeing what doesn't work. You mentioned like other cities and stuff like that, and yeah. So last year was a big year for us in terms of trying to see how we can go out into other cities, and we had varying success. In some cities, it worked better than others, and
Mm-hmm.
it's also a learning experience for me. Like this is my first real business, I guess you could say, um, and so for me, it's just interesting to play with different things. I love the fact now that I can have an idea and I can just make it come to life. You know what I mean. So it's kind of the
Yeah,
creative
yeah.
side of things, and then it's also I listen to so many business podcasts and this sort of stuff. And I love to get inspired by listening to something on a business podcast and thinking, how can I work that into Giddies? Like
Yeah.
we've got the anyone can come to our events, you buy a ticket and you come, you know. But then we have a layer on top of that called the Golden Giddies, and that's like a subscription model. And I got inspired by that listening to a business podcast that I like. They're like, you need recurring revenue, blah blah blah. And I was like, how do I get recurring revenue with Giddies? I was like, we could do a subscription model, but I didn't want to have that for everybody. I was like, okay, what are the extra benefits we can offer? Okay, we can do discounts. We can do like a private WhatsApp access. We can do special events for them and
Mm-hmm.
create another layer. And so
Mm-hmm.
stuff like that. And then we launched the Golden Giddies and people started buying that subscription before I'd even advertised it. It was crazy. Somebody went on the first day. I hadn't even mentioned anything about it. Somebody went to my link in bio and just bought a year subscription straight away. I was like, wow, okay, that's like a good signal for me that this is something people want. And so it's small things like that that I thought that kind of get me hyped up now, and especially on the giddy side of things, it's just the I guess that growing it and the experimentation that I think is quite like stimulating. Do you know what I mean? And yeah,
Yeah.
but you're spot on in terms of there are elements. It's not like I can just go and treat it like a pizza, but we have like in Madrid, especially, we have amazing hosts. So usually I'm not hosting the events single handedly anymore. You know, like most of the events. I mean, sometimes I host them myself because I still like to do it.
Mm.
I like to be in the trenches, as it were,
Yeah.
and understanding like, was this a good event? Was this a good
Yeah,
experience?
exactly. You
Trying,
feel for it.
yeah, exactly. But usually we'll have a host there, and so I can kind of dip in, dip out, and I can more so now treat it as kind of like I can consume my own events as well, you know. And of
Yeah, it's
course,
brilliant.
I love to go, and when I'm there, like you obviously have the mind on of like, okay, is this flowing as it should? What can be improved? All that sort of stuff. But I'm not the type I'm not such a I'm not a type A personality. You know what I mean? I'm not for me. Not everything has to be in this box of like this, yes. So I can cut loose a little bit at the events if there's a good vibe on that particular event. Like I'll have a few drinks and stuff and like just shoot the shit with people. And for me, that's also why I love community as a business model as well, because I make events that I want to go to. I can go to them. I can enjoy every second of my work. Not many people can have like an idea one week and make it come alive the next week, and then also not something they genuinely want to do, and then also profit off it as well. Usually, you pay for things that you want to do, but like for me, I feel like I get paid to do things that I want to do, which is like a really like life first business model or life first way of thinking, and then designing my life to do stuff around stuff that I want to do.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. And I do think it speaks to like there's been obviously we're talking about Madrid, but I'm sure that if we look to other major cities, there's like been a boom of like these community, these communities that are like just cropping up all over the place. And I think it does speak to that, like that need of connection and like trying to like branch out and trying to reach people and meet new people. And sometimes it's just going to be a lovely conversation and you'll never meet that person ever again. Sometimes, like you say, it turns out to be like your best friends 5 years down the line. You're like, oh Christ, this is how I met this person. But it's like, yeah, offering people that space, I think is really important. I'm interested as well. Obviously, you said like you've got three parts. The second part, which you said is the one that nourishes your soul, which is the ones where you kind of go off on your own, and where you like video the content, but you're kind of like normally, from what I've seen, like you go off and just kind of travel around with like a slight premise. So I'm interested if you can. Well, I suppose to some of the people who maybe haven't seen that content, like just give us some examples, and then what it is that number one, what it is that urges you to do those types of things, and then what it is that you get out of those things on the back end of it.
So so just as a summary, so like to connect it to Guiris actually, so like in the first year that Guiris was going on, I burnt myself out completely. I was hosting every single event. I wasn't getting much out of the community apart from financially. I was like making events, they were selling out, and I was like, okay, I need to do this. I was on the treadmill. It wasn't a business, it was just everything relied on me. And I got to the point where I was like, okay, I'm burnt out. I don't want to go to any more events. I'm sick of speaking to people and saying the same thing over and over again. I was like, something needs to change. And I was talking to people for a long time. And I was saying, I want to take a big risk. I don't know what the risk is, but I was inviting this big risk into my life. Somewhere along the way, I don't know where the idea came into my head. I just thought, I'm just going to go and I'm going to walk the entire length of Spain. And I'm going to make content every day. And I'm just going to be out there alone. And I don't know why. I don't know where it came from. It just came. It was like divine intervention.
Have you always been a bit of a loan shark? Like, would that, like, so people from back home in Birmingham, would that have, obviously, quite a mad thing to do, but like, would that have surprised them completely? Because if I said I was doing something on my own, I'm very much community. Like, I need people around me at all times. If I said I was doing anything on my own, mates would be like, I think he's lost the plot. With you, is that like, oh, that's Tom. Yeah, I can see him doing that. Or is that like, or was that a massive shift?
I don't even know, to be honest. It's so funny to think about that. Like, I'd have to ask my boys group like from back home. But like my best mates, they're super down to earth. Even when I told them that what I was doing, I probably got more stick in the group chat than be like, oh, that's super cool or anything like that. They're probably just like, taking the piss more than anything. Yeah. But I love that. That's like that is.
That's what British friends are for, isn't it?
Super British, so it's like you probably understand that. So I don't really know. They probably weren't super surprised because since kind of moving to Spain and then especially since making content, I feel like I did take a shift in my life a little bit of just not giving a shit what anyone thinks and just doing something and just trying to do these big things and just seeing where it landed and just consistently slingshotting myself out into the ether and just trying to make the best of it. And that's what the Spain walk was. In the end, it became not walking the length of Spain, it was skateboarding the length of Spain, because 2 weeks before I left, I walked past the skateboard shop and I was like, oh, it's a cool little cruiser. And I thought, wow, imagine if I take this tiny skateboard. It's over there. I mean, it's on my thing and I've got the blurred background, so I won't show it. But I thought, what if I take this tiny little cruiser skateboard? And even if I get to use it a couple of times, it'll be so worth it because it's so small anyway. And if I can use it on a couple of hills, turns out I was on that thing for about 70% of the time. It was I covered so much ground in it, and it would have doubled the length of the journey, I'm sure, if I hadn't taken it. So I'm so happy that I did. And it also added like an extra level of freedom to the journey. It's like skating is kind of like surfing. There's freedom built into it. It's like snowboarding, you know what I mean? It's like you're cruising, you're carving, and there's something about that feeling that like I took the bus from Madrid to País Basco, to a place called San Juan de Gaztelugatxe. If the listeners have never heard of the place, I mean, I'd say Google it, but it's such a weirdly spelt
Yeah,
name. San
Bass,
Juan.
yeah, Bass spellings, yeah.
But it's a UNESCO World Heritage Site. It's absolutely beautiful. It's famous because apart from being the UNESCO World Heritage Site, it's also a filming location from Game of Thrones, Dragonstone, I think, where it has that big wine.
Oh yeah, yeah. I've been. Oh Christ, I've been there. Yeah. I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah.
Amazing. And so I started there. That was my start point. My ex-girlfriend actually gave me the inspiration to start from there. And so I started from there. And over the next 55 days, I just like let it rip. I just went through Spain, and it was insane. I partied. I came across like fiestas del pueblo, which are like little tiny pueblo parties. I slept outside in my hammock. I had a hammock. I almost froze to death one night. I walked through an Amber Alert storm in Sevilla. I got drenched. I did so much amazing stuff. I swam in lakes naked. You know what I mean? I slept with random strangers' couches that I met in the pub like a couple of hours before. Just the best experience of my life, like without a doubt. It changed me, like profoundly changed me. Not while I was going through it, but like afterwards, I was like, wow, this is actually what life is about. And so what did I get out of that? It was just that thing. Okay, I don't know if you ever did this when you were younger, but when I was younger, we used to like go out like playing in the local neighborhood, and sometimes we just kind of go further than we ever had before across the fields or whatever. We go somewhere, then we keep going and going, and you're on some farmer's land, and you climb another thing, and you go somewhere else. And it was that feeling. It was that feeling, but for 55 days across a whole country. It was like, wow, where am I going? I don't know. Every day I wake up, and it was that total freedom of. I think that actually most people, at least in the Western world, maybe most people probably never experienced that in their whole entire lives. For me, I guess it's something to do with the nomadic nature of humans. But I just think that it cooled to a certain part of my soul that even when I'm describing it now, I'm sure you can like feel my energy, like how much I enjoyed it, because it was just an insane experience. And yeah, and like luckily I was filming the whole thing, so I've always got those videos to look back on. It blew up on social media. I was doing loads of content the whole time, speaking to local people, chatting to abuelas, just doing. It was just honestly, I can't describe. It was just amazing. Every aspect of it. It was hard. I lost 15 kilograms in 55 days. I got like, I was like scratched up. I was bruised. You know what I mean? I drank every day. I was drinking beers and I was eating tortilla de patata. So like, it wasn't even like I got shredded. I was like skinny fat by the end of it. It wasn't like a good for building my physique or anything like that. But man, for the soul, amazing.
It's interesting because you said something at the very start of the pod, and then you said something when you started saying this as well, which I think resonates with me because it's something that I'm trying to myself personally. I'm trying to learn how to master, and I think a lot of people get held back by it. Which was you said the idea of like not feeling shame. So you said like at the very start when you kind of introduced yourself and how you started out, you said like once you got over the shame of producing like content, and then you kind of took off like personally. And then when I hear that story as well, it's like there's obviously logistical reasons why some people might never do something like that, but there's also like from me, I hear that story and I go, well, it's not. I mean, I've never skateboarded in my life. I'd find some other mode of transport, but it's not that holds me back. It's the idea of, and I suppose what we spoke about before about starting, going to one of your events, the idea of shame, the idea of like being the weirdo, or like what other people think about you, or like, you go to these Puestas del Pueblo, and which is literally like, for people who don't know, it's like, tiny little like town hold, like I suppose in England, close to like Mayfairs or something like that, but in tiny little towns where everybody knows everybody. And if you don't mind me saying, Tom, you don't look Spanish by any stretch of the imagination, so you would have stuck out like a sore thumb anyway.
Yeah.
And for you not to give a fuck and just to, or at least, or even if you did give a fuck, to get over that fuck and to go and to talk and to whatever, and not have any inhibitions about maybe your Spanish or whatever like that. I think that's like what is like really inspiring, and I wonder if that was like if you've consciously got over that, if it's something that kind of you've just naturally by putting yourself out there, you kind of got over that hurdle, or if it was a thing of like, okay, how do I get over this? Because this thing is like holding me back. This like fear of what people think of me, this fear of like that people are talking about me. Which when myself personally, when I think about it, I'm like, no one has enough time to be thinking about anyone else anyway, to be quite frank. Do you know what I mean? Like, no one's really sat there going, oh, have you seen what Tom's doing? And then and having like a 3-hour conversation about you, for better or for worse.
Yeah.
But yet, in our own heads, we're still like, oh, I don't want to, do you know what I mean? And it's something that I think that's probably what resonated with me when I saw your first couple of videos. I was like, yeah, this guy just is like putting himself out there, and it's something that I would like to aspire to be more like, to be honest. And I'm sure a lot of people who are listening like feel the same thing. So I'm interested in that side of your like psyche.
Yeah, thank you. Firstly, I'm not sure if I was always like that. I think that, like everybody, when I was younger, I was probably quite self-conscious about what other people think and thought and that sort of thing. I think it was for me. I think when I started putting myself out there, it was more out of fear of like what happens if I don't. You know what I mean? Like,
Right, okay.
I've always thought that, and I don't know if this is like if I've had if it's an ego thing talking, but I've always thought that I'm just destined for more, and I've never been satisfied, which is a double-edged blade, because now I've got a great life and everything, but still I'm always looking for more, which is bad in a way. So it kind of serves me in some regards, but also in other regards, it's kind of leaves me dissatisfied a lot of the time. And so, like, for example, I finished the Spain walk, and straight away when I came back to Madrid, I was like, "Oh, what can we do next?" You know, it's like it's that kind of thing.
Yeah.
You always have to
Instead
top
of in it.
Yeah, exactly. Instead of just sitting with the feeling of being like, "Wow, what an accomplishment! Of how great that was." But I think there's a part of that that's in human nature anyway, so I'm not super worried about that. But it was more for the fear, to go back to your question of like, what happens if I don't? So when I was sitting doing UX, doing my UX job, I was sitting in this very same room. I've been here for like 4 years now in this apartment, and I remember sitting in front of this very same computer as well, and just thinking, God, like, I can't do this for like 10, 20, 30 years. Like, I need to do more. I need to do more. And if I don't do more, it's like an injustice to myself. I need to, I knew that I wanted to build a business, but I just didn't know anything about business. I didn't know step one. Right now, to be honest, maybe I'd have a better idea. But if I had to go back to zero again and start all over again, I'm not even sure what type of business. The only business I know is social media, the attention economy, and then spinning businesses out of that. That's kind of what I know. Don't ask me to build anything in the real world or anything like that, because I've got kind of like actual like stuff. You know what I mean? Like, I can't install Windows or anything like that. I don't really know how to do it. But so yeah, so go back to your question again, because I know that I'm rambling a little bit, but it was more the fear of, well, if I don't do something, then nothing changes, and I wasn't content with how it was, and so I thought, okay, I knew that there's a business model around social media, and it's very simple to understand. I mean, for me, it was very simple to understand, because the content that I watch is YouTube, and so I'm not so much a person that's going to put on Netflix or watches the TV. I just watch lots of YouTube, and I can see it's very simple. You make videos, get views, then you get sponsors, you get ad revenue, or how you can monetize that. You can launch your own product. You know what I mean? Attention equals money somehow, but you got to figure that middle part out. So I thought, okay, this is the best business. This is what I want to do. I want to start getting attention, and then I can figure out the business afterwards. But for now, let's just figure out how to kind of start building a personal brand, or start building something where at least I've got some sort of audience. And that was kind of where the fear started melting away. And at the start, I think that I was, of course, very self-conscious, because like, if you start posting videos of yourself on TikTok as a 30-year-old man, like, people are going to say stuff, and I'm sure there's stuff in my life like behind my back. But then once it works, and everyone says this, so I know this is like generic advice, but it's true. You know what I mean? It's like, as soon as it starts working, it's not cringe anymore, and then everyone's congratulating you. So it's kind of like, you fuck it. You know what I mean? You might as well do it, because if it works, then great. If it doesn't work, then you gave it a go, and that's not a cringe thing either for me. That's like, now maybe it's not for you, or if it is for you, just keep at it.
Yeah. And if you've got a good sense of humor, if it doesn't work, you've got a funny story, worst case scenario. Do you know what I mean? It's funny, because only like last week, I mean, I work in a telco company, and like, obviously, so I do like the digital side of the media planning, all that type of stuff. And we were talking about like getting an influencer involved in a campaign. Like, the numbers are just like astronomical, and there's no like basis for the numbers. It's just they see the big telco company come, and I'm sure the agents add on an extra 50% because they think they can. And we were talking about it in the office of like, fuck man, like, and I said, I was like, we all could have been influencers if we really wanted to. It's just the shame that killed us, that didn't allow us to get over the hump. And these people, do you know what I mean? But the difference that I would put between someone like those people who, truth be told, not on a human basis, but I have very little respect for, especially once you work with these people. It's like, oh my god. And then someone like you is that I feel like that because I think influencers has almost like it's like a dirty word nowadays, to be
Yeah,
honest.
for some people, yeah,
Yeah, but I think to tarnish them and you and people like you with the same brush is actually a disservice, because I think what they do is completely self-centered. And hey, listen, good luck to them. Make a buck while you can. Somewhere, make the hay while the sun's shining, and all the rest of it. But it's very self-centered. It's all about them. It's their life. They're launching a product. They don't really care about the product or whatever, and it's just what they can get paid. Happy days. But I think what you've done, and even I think when you talk about it, you kind of do yourself a disservice, because I feel like you almost put yourself in their box. But I actually see you completely differently, in the sense that you work in the attention economy and you've had to get eyes on yourself like every other influencer does. But then what you've created is something that's much more for the people. It's not just about yourself. It's not just what serves me and what gives me the biggest buck at the end of the day that's going to allow me to buy like my Prada fucking shoes. Do you know what I mean?
yeah, yeah.
And I think like I think that, and you've tapped into that. And I think that by doing that, you've created something like really special. And obviously, yeah, like no one's going to begrudge you from earning a buck from it and making a lifestyle out of it, of course. But I think what you've done is you've created something really wholesome that as you can tell, he doesn't actually now need you. Like you said before at the start, every event you had to do everything. You had to do everything from start to finish. You've now put it up in such a place whereby if you want, you don't even have to attend the events, and the events are still a roaring success. So you've actually taken that yourself out of it in some way. Do you know what I mean? And like that, another influencer can't do. If they're not the face and center of it, there is nothing there, because the whole thing circulates around them. They are the essence of everything that they do. It's all self-centered. Whereas I think what you've done is actually is very selfless to some extent. So I definitely think you should take massive plaudits for that. One of my last questions, we're coming to the end here, is, I suppose I'll leave this next question for last, but before the second to last question is, I guess, how has it changed your relation? I'm interested in how it's changed maybe your relationship with Spain. So you've come here for a girlfriend. No better reason to move a country, to be honest. But you've come here for a girlfriend. It hasn't necessarily worked out. You've then gone through, like you said, the first year of not really having your own friends, obviously getting to terms with the language, a different culture, all of those things, which until you've moved abroad, you can never really appreciate. I mean, my dad's Italian. We lived in England my whole life. I never understood. I just took it for granted. Yeah, my dad's Italian. We live in England. Okay, cool. It was only when I moved out to Spain that I was like, I respected my dad so much more actually for it, because I was like, oh, I'm going through the stuff that he went through 60 years ago, but actually he didn't even have the language. I mean, he said that he came over here with no English and learned English like watching EastEnders. That's the level we're talking about, and he now speaks like fluently. Yeah, but like when you go through it, when you go through it, you understand what moving abroad is. And it's not just sunshine and canyons. I mean, we wish it was, but it's not all that. And there are times where you think, have I fucked up here? There are times where you see your friends who have almost invariably moved to London, making big bucks compared to the Spanish bucks. I mean, I moved over here with 12K salary. In England, that's literally illegal. And then you compare yourself and you go, what the fuck have I done here? Do you know what I mean? So I wonder, but you've now created something that is like really special, that people love, that gives you a lifestyle that you enjoy, that allows you to travel around Spain and create content, but for different reasons that completely nourish you. And you've now got the third part, the community builders. How has that changed your relationship with Spain itself, and how you see yourself out here now?
So it's interesting, really, because I think Spain, yeah, like you say, Spain itself has changed a lot while I've been here over the past 10 years. When I first came here, it felt like I was the only English person over here, to be honest, and I didn't hear English in the streets. I lived in Aluce, which is like a pretty Latino barrio, like neighborhood. And so back then, I really felt like, wow, I'm kind of doing something that's like different. And even though it wasn't always good, I kind of felt like at least I felt a bit like a pioneer, like doing something that I felt like I was doing something crazy for sure at the time. And I kind of like the fact that I've always, as I say, I like the chaos. And I think that I've always been it's in my DNA to be a bit contrarian with this sort of stuff. So I like the fact that my friends were maybe like following one path, but I was like doing something
In your-
different in Spain, yeah, and carving my own path. How has it changed me, or how has it changed my relationship with Spain over the time? To be honest, like actually, although I love Spain and doing things like this Spain walk, like the Spain skateboard, it was called the wrong way down, by the way. So that's the kind of name that I called it. That's how I usually refer to it. When I did the wrong way down, like it made me love this country so much. However, I think that like making social media online. There's two things that it's nowhere is the perfect place, right? So I've made a lot of content talking like really good things about Spain. I've also made content saying things that I don't like so much about Spain because nowhere is perfect, and
Yeah,
that's the reality of it. Social media
yeah.
can be such a like a shitty environment, but this is the game that I signed up for, so I'm not complaining about it. It's not like a feel sorry for me style thing. But I get so many comments like go back to your own country if you don't like Spain, whatever. I get so much like hate like that, and
Yeah.
it doesn't bother me like personally, but of course it makes me think like, oh god, people are the same anywhere. I'm sure if I was making content in Italy or in England about and I wasn't English, even if I was English, you know what I mean, someone's always got something to say on social media. So it doesn't make me think
Cool.
badly of Spain in general, but it can be a little bit tiring, and it does make me think like some Spanish people can be like anywhere as well. This isn't just the dig on Spanish people, but like some Spanish people can definitely live under a rock. I think Spain has the mentality of they're more inward looking, or at least they have been for many years. Partially probably because they had a dictator for like up until what 30 years ago, and so I think that they're very focused on Spanish culture and stuff like that, and they don't really know when they see my content a lot of
Mm,
the time. They're like, this is the way it is in Spain. So if you don't like it, you can leave. It's like, well, come on,
mm,
it's not the best way. So that's one thing. I think that my relationship with Spain, I have grown a bit tired of that kind of mentality a little bit. Um, I think Madrid will always be my base camp, but over the past year, this is part of why I've launched Community Builders now, because I want more location freedom and I want to actually spend more time outside of Spain.
okay.
One of the things that I love about Spain is it introduced me to Latin culture. I love Latinos. I think they're amazing. I love the culture. I love the music. I love the food. I think it's like the reasons why I thought I was going to like Spain before I came to Spain. It's actually the Latin culture that I love. And I love Spain as well. Don't get me wrong. Like Spain has surprised
Yeah.
me in different ways and like new
Yeah.
ways, and it's introduced me to a lot of new things. But the
Yeah.
preconceptions that I previously had about Spain is actually more like the Latin culture, and I think that's
Okay. Cool.
quite well. So I would love to go spend more time over there. And the other
Yeah.
and the other thing is, and this isn't just a Spain issue, but it is a particularly bad issue in Spain, but it is an issue all over the world, is entrepreneurial ship or entrepreneurialism here is just like completely suppressed by every single system they have in place. And I just think it's such a shame. Like for me, for example, I'm building a business here in Spain.
Mm,
I'm like employing people in terms of if that not as staff, like not as staff
full
members,
time.
but yeah,
Yeah.
exactly, not full time or even part time, but as autonomos and stuff like that. And I'm like bringing I think I'm lifting the economy, at least in my own small part. And I feel like nothing, I just feel like there's no incentive to do so. And in fact, they leave you the opposite. They leave me, I've thought before, it's like, I should just stop doing Guiris altogether because I work 6 months of the year for the fucking tax man, and it pisses me off, to be honest. And it's like,
Yeah.
I give 6 months of my year practically to Hacienda or my gestor who actually manage, which I need to you know
Yeah.
what
Of
I mean,
course.
to
Yeah.
manage.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I think it's such a shame because not just for my own. I mean, obviously, I'm talking selfishly now because I want more money in the bank at the end of the month, of course. But also, it's just so detrimental. I think to like the younger generations in Spain as well. It's such a shame that like if a kid that wants to start his own t-shirt brand, or he has an idea, or like, who knows, maybe he's got like an AI thing going on, or I don't know, or he has an idea and he wants to start it. It's such a shame that the only way that he can realistically do so, unless he's loaded,
Mm,
is to do it in negro, which is under the table. They say in negro here. It's just such a shame. It's like there's no incentives for him to do it really. There's no there are a couple of programs now for like grants and stuff like that. But if you want to be an autonomo here, if you want to start as a freelancer here, you're going to be paying hundreds, pretty much hundreds off the bat from month one if you're making profit or not. And it's just like for me, that's just like an absolute disgrace.
yeah. Yeah. I've got a couple of autonomous friends in my friendship circle, and it's like I respect them so much because there's like I have that spirit of like I want to kind of do my own thing, and I've always been like quite entrepreneur when I was younger and stuff. But like I'll be honest, like that idea of, and especially even more so when you're an immigrant out here because you don't have, I'll move back to mum and dad's for like 6 months. I still live in Madrid, but I'll just move back to mum and dad's who also have a flat in Madrid for 6 months while I get my it's like for people who don't know, in Spain you have to basically pay an autonomous fee, which they've reduced at the start of your first year or so. I mean, you'll know better than me, but then they put it back up to your normal rates, and then it's like that for the rest of your life. Which, as Tom said, you have to pay regardless of what you make. Like you might not earn a single penny that month, you still have to pay it for it as an autonomo. And it's just like compared to England, where I'm not saying that England's great and everything, but at least there you pay off what you earn, which seems just like the logical situation. And obviously, when you're starting up anything, whether it's a photographer, or a community-based thing like you've done, whatever, a restaurant, whatever it is, at the very start, you've obviously got very limited income, if any, at all, because you're trying to make connections. So to not give people that grace, it does feel kind of counterintuitive. And like kudos to you for doing it, and also then dealing with the Spanish bureaucracy, which is I think only Italian bureaucracy can rival that, to be honest. But I think it's an interesting point you make as well about the idea of like critiquing Spain, or like or not even critiquing, but maybe sometimes just pointing things out that maybe aren't ideal or whatever. It's like you said, I think we've got into a situation now whereby, and this is not just about the world, about countries, but just about any topic in life ever, is like if you say one thing's bad or one thing's good, you're saying that the other thing is bad, and vice versa. Nothing is ever done in its own thing. So, and people take it as a critique, and it's like, well, it's not a critique, and nothing's perfect. It's just, and I've come to terms with it as well. Like for example, like with me, I've got a couple of friends in my circle who Spanish friends. Actually, one of them is Mexican, who absolutely loves bullfighting. Like loves it. Not for me. Like, it just isn't. I don't necessarily agree with it. I don't think it's necessary and all the rest of it. But I felt really uncomfortable critiquing it because I felt like, oh, I'm an Englishman, or Italian Englishman over here. I don't really have any right to say anything about it because I'm not Spanish, so I shouldn't. Do you know what I mean? And then you get to a point you're like, hey, I love fucking Spain, and I'll fucking defend it as much as anyone will. But that if you love something, it also gives you the same right to critique it because you love it. You're not doing it out of hate. You're not being like, oh, this is a shithole. This should. Do you know what I mean? You're doing it because you love it and because you want to. You in an absolute ideal world, as at least the way that you see it, you'd like to see certain things improve.
Yeah,
And so I've kind of taken a bit more of a allowed myself to do that. Do you know what I mean? In the sense of like, I'm not doing this out of hate. I'm not doing it out of anything else. I absolutely love Spain. I have no intentions of moving back to England. I love going back to England for 3 or 4 days, happy days. And then about the fourth or fifth, I'm like, get me back. Do you know what I mean? So, and that's one of the things. Obviously, you're in a different world because these are conversations that I have with my friends. It's very different to social media, where people are just coming on there to give you a good kicking, and then like they get their fix and they go off again. But I think anyone who's like paid any attention to like properly to what you do and the content that you promote, like you put out, and what you're building out here in Spain, I think, to be honest, if they don't see that you have a deep love for like Spain and Spanish culture, then I think they're doing that willfully. I don't think they're like there's no because you can't like look at what you do. No one skateboards the length of a country
yeah,
that they hate.
yeah.
Let's just leave it at that. Like that's just the facts. So yeah, I think you just got to take that with a pinch of salt. But the last question before we just to end up here, then Tom, is I guess it's kind of been such a meteoric rise these last couple of years, and probably to some extent somewhat unplanned. I wouldn't do you a disservice, but from where you started to where you are now, you probably didn't have it fully mapped out. So I wonder, it might be a bit of a difficult question, but what is it that you see, or where do you see Guiris and yourself going in the next, like I say, couple of years, like what the 5 year plan, as it were, or whatever it is, or where do you see this moving to?
For me, it's a really interesting question. It could go to a few different places. So, ideally, in an ideal world, I would love it if Giddies wasn't actually my business and it was more my passion project. And I would love to be like, I want to make events around exactly what I want to do, and purely explore my curiosities and make events around that. So there was no financial pressure on them at all, because that for me would be how I think that we do the best events, and I also think it's how I would enjoy it the most. Because right now it's my business, and I rely on that. You know what I mean? It's my income as well. So I think that comes with a certain pressure that sometimes we have to do. we have to have an event in the calendar every week. We have to do, you know what I mean? There's these things, and when you operate like that, you sometimes operating from a stance of like, it's just not total freedom, you know. I'm if you haven't like been able to tell, I'm big on freedom, and I love I'd love to be able to do whatever I want to do whenever I want to do it. And so I would love for Giddies, I would love to over the next couple of years, maybe it's through community builders, um, completely become financially independent aside from Giddies, so I can still do Giddies, but on the scale that I would like to do it. So yeah, on my own terms completely. And so what would that mean? It would mean probably having an event planner full time. It would mean me. It would mean having like a team of hosts. This is like the dream for Giddies. I don't even know if I want it in every city across Spain. To be honest, I kind of like it how it is. I'm not.
Yeah.
I like it in Madrid. I would love to go deeper into Madrid and just dominate Madrid and be everywhere in Madrid. Maybe Barcelona and Valencia as well. But like I love Giddies in Madrid, and because it's kind of like for selfish reasons, really, it's where I get the most benefit out of it as well. You know,
Yeah, of course.
if I can help people in Barcelona, like take Giddies to Barcelona, which is obviously what we're doing, and get the same kind of bring the same vibe, but only if it's the same vibe. You know what I mean? I don't want to sacrifice. That's the big problem with like scaling it into different cities. I don't want to sacrifice the quality, which because I know Madrid so well, so I feel like I can just do my best work here. Wait, sorry, I've lost the question. I've completely wobbled.
Where do you see yourself and where you see Giddies going in the next couple of years?
So I see from my own point of view, like, so if that's kind of Giddies. I'd love to get it to a point where it's independent from me. It's not also my main financial kind of baby as well. I would love to. My pipe dream for Giddies is like a couple of things. I would love to do a Giddy Fest, so like a real festival, like a 1 day festival. We've got a Giddy Spring Fest this year, but it's not a festival. It's like an outdoor terraza kind of party, but like we're going to try festival vibes, you know. Giddy Fest would be amazing for me. That's a big thing. The big forever project, I think that could be awesome. Which is one of those things that I don't even know if I'd want to do it because there's downsides to it too. But I love the idea of it. But it probably wouldn't go anything like this. So in Spain, for the listeners, you probably know this. There's a massive trend of like these old pueblos that are just slowly dying because the only people that live there are old people, and the young people, even if they're born there, they leave and they go to the nearest city. And so it's called España vaciada, and it's the emptied Spain. And I love the idea of going to a local council and being like, I'll repopulate one of your tiny towns. I'll bring it back to life. Give me a grant. Give me some we'll do content around it. I'll document the whole process and we'll turn it into like a little Giddy town, basically. And it doesn't mean that only Giddies can come, of course, for everybody. But the problem is, it's gonna like I'm not like a hippie, you know what I mean? I'm not like a hippie kind of dude at all, and I know that the idea of this is going to attract hippie style people. So I don't want to like build this thing, attract all the hippies, and then hate what I've built. You know what I mean? So I have
end up on some sort of like Netflix like documentary.
Exactly, and like being this cult leader. I don't want to do that at all. I don't want to be like going off with everyone's wives and being the cult leader.
Yeah.
But so I love the idea of this, and I love the idea of like because I think it would work. For example, because who doesn't? I mean, everybody. Once you start getting to our age, you start to think, oh, I love hiking, love going to the mountains. The only reason why I personally wouldn't move to the mountains because there's no young people there. There's nothing going on there that I really want to do. I still want to be able to go to the pub. I want to go and get a coffee. I want to go and shoot the shit with my friends. I want the potential to meet a partner. You know, if I move to I'm not meeting a partner.
It's empty, literally.
Exactly. It's literally empty. So unless I want to fall in love with the local like cattle population or something, I don't know. But so that's kind of a pipe dream for me that I kind of love the idea of. There's this guy that did this series a while ago, moving to an abandoned ghost town in the middle of Nevada, and he just brought the ghost town kind of back to life and slowly just worked on it. And it wasn't a ghost town; it was an ex-gold mining town. But there's loads across Nevada that just kind of overnight the gold runs out and they just empty out. Yeah, they just empty out. There's no reason to be there anymore. So he kind of had this series bringing it back to life, and I love that. Speaks to my soul a lot. I'd love to do that, but obviously a project like that is an insane commitment. It doesn't really work with me running Giddies here at the same time either.
Yeah. So final act, maybe.
Huh?
It might be the final act.
The final act. Yeah, I love that. Yeah, that it could be the final act. I really really love that. For now, to answer your question, I know I've given you a long answer because there's lots of things that I want to do. Right. So I've got a big adventure coming up in June. I haven't like fully announced it yet, but I'm doing it. I can say that I'm doing it on behalf of brain tumor research. So I'm raising money for brain tumor research. I've got a couple of sponsors locked in. Well, I've got one sponsor locked in for sure. Rab, it's like they're an outdoor English brand, outdoor clothing, and they're providing all the kit, all the gear. So I'm doing it
Nice.
for brain tumor research, and and sponsored by Rab. I'm trying to get a couple more sponsors on board. So I don't know, maybe some of your listeners, if they've got connections or anything like that. What I'm thinking is I need sponsors to. I've got my gear sponsor. I need probably, I mean, I'm going to do it regardless if I have this or not. What will make the whole trip a lot easier is if I have a support vehicle. So it's going to be about 40 to 60 days, somewhere in that. I imagine probably around the same, probably around 50 days. Um, and it would be great if I could get a support vehicle to meet me along the way at certain checkpoints, and also a videographer. So the more sponsors I get, the bigger the more ambitious
Yeah, of
I
course.
can be, basically. So, but the good thing is about it, it's just like the Spain skateboard journey. I can do it myself. I don't need a single sponsor, and I'll do it regardless. And it's going to be awesome. Basically, it's in Spain, of course. It's going to be all the same flavors of the previous adventure, and hopefully, it's going to be just as even more crazy. It's going to be more difficult for sure as well. There's no skateboard involved this time. It's going to be awesome.
Beautiful, man. Beautiful. Well, I think we should leave it there. I'm really thankful for your time, for coming on.
Thank you.
Hopefully, anyone who's listened to this, who's maybe in any of the Guiris de Mierda cities, maybe this gives them the push to go along, myself included. And I look forward to meeting you in person properly, and having a canya or two.
Get in the canyon. And yeah, if I can just plug my community builders thing quickly.
Absolutely.
All
Yeah,
right.
yeah, go ahead. Sorry, completely. Go, and all the socials and all the rest of it. Go ahead, plug.
Cool, cool, cool. So I've just launched my community builders now. If you like the kind of stuff that I've spoke about, it's only been possible for me to do this because I launched my own community. And as I said at the top of the conversation, community for me is the best business model for the soul. And so in my community builders boot camp, we go in, it's like a 12-week boot camp, but it's self-paced. And the modules are already unlocking. We've already got about 20 people in there at the moment that are building their own communities. And the idea is simple. It's we help you form your idea of what you want your community to be, and then it's just all of my knowledge kind of packaged up in a way that exactly how I built Giddies, and available for you to use, basically. So we've got a 10-part module. We've got loads of resources breaking down monetization models, all that sort of stuff. So it's basically that's it. It's for you if you're that type of person who maybe you're in a job that you enjoy. You're in a job that like maybe pays you decently, but it just doesn't really speak to your soul, or maybe you're naturally the person that connects your friends anyway, or maybe you just got a hobby or a passion that you want to build a life around. It's for you, basically. That's kind of what we teach within the bootcamp. So that's it. Tom Charlie Design everywhere. Guiris de Mierda everywhere. That's it.
Happy days. Lovely stuff. Thank you very much.
Thank you.